And then I think we do be being live if everything goes well. Hopefully there's not going to be any significant amount of dropped frames. Let Bully Modeling won the vote today in the Discord server, so we're back to this project and doing some more stuff. Between the last one and today, I did make a couple of things, which I'll just go over real quickly. I made a spear, which essentially is just an arrow without the... Hold on. Location Z to 0, pretty please. Which essentially is just an arrow with the tip modified a little bit to be a little bit flatter. Of course, not having the fletching at the end there. I made this very simple magic wand to go with the book. That seems appropriate. And I think I also made this axe, which is just a hammer with an axe on it instead of a hammerhead. That's really all there is to that. So I did that just when I was bored, and I think everything else we did on stream last time. So let's take a look at our to-do list. It has not grown all that much. I've added a couple of things to the props. I think I added the animals category, in which I'm going to add a fish and some other stuff eventually, surely. And, well, the magic wand and a staff as well has been added to the to-do list there. But for now, what we will do is we'll go through, I think, some more of the fantasy weapons. Maybe we'll do some of the sci-fi stuff. I've only got a laser sword and a laser gun here for Wild West. I've got a couple more things. But if we complete this, we should have... I think at the moment we have okay, that's 14 models. I think once we complete all this, let's just check that. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That would be this one I have completed. And I'm looking at at least 25 weapons for the fantasy bundle. Potentially up to 40 or 50 would be ideal. So the offer for if you guys have anything that you're you should definitely add that. I don't know if you can read the font size on stream. You probably can't. Don't worry about that. Just throw it into the chat, and if it's not on my list yet, I'll add it to the list, because any fantasy type weapon, also sci-fi weapons, Wild West weapons, those all work out. I'll just add those too. For the time being, I'm focusing mostly on these fantasy weapons. And now that I've blabbered a bit away for 5 minutes, I think it is time we got started on... let's do the grappling hook. That seems fun. Let me look up a reference for that real quick. Grappling hook. So that should be relatively easy. I don't want to shop for one. No. So yeah, that should be relatively easy, as in just looking at the reference here. It's just something that has 4 of these curved hooks to it, which is why it's a grappling hook. No duh. So that should actually be remarkably easy. Can we set 3D cursor to world origin? There's a shortcut for that, I believe. Let me look that up real quick. Blender 3D cursor to origin. If you want to move the 3D cursor to the position of the world origin, you should press Ctrl C. That is copy, but sure. Yeah, no. That's definitely not what that... No. Let's just go to the documentation for Blender itself. That seems more reliable than a random Google article. Shift right mouse button. Yeah, but that doesn't set it exactly back to... Surely there is some way to set it back to 0, 0, 0, right? Surely there is. I don't think that I care enough, really. Can I just say set you to 0, 0? No, definitely not. Okay, never fucking mind then. Let's just get started on the grappling hook. I don't care. We'll start with a cube and we'll scale that down to like 0.1 to get a decent starting point. Probably even a little bit less. And then the way I'm going to model this, I think, which makes most sense, is to mirror this in the X and the Y. So you only have a quarter to work with here. And then I'll pull up the reference image again, because for the most part, really all that I have to do is extend this up a little bit, then extrude this out, and that extrusion should be moved like ever so slightly. And I actually don't think that I want like merging and clipping for this. Hold on. Let's disable merging and clipping, because now it allows me to. That's not great. That's not great indeed. Hold on. That's better. Okay, let's look at this from the top, because that makes it a little easier to make this somewhat reasonably symmetrical in 4 ways. I mean, of course it's going to be symmetrical because mirror modifier, but yeah, I think that's good. That's pretty good. Maybe it's even a little much, to be honest with you. It only needs to be slightly parted here, maybe, and then it needs to curve. I feel like it's still not. Let's actually just count the squares, right? So we want to move you something a little like this. That should be pretty much equal distance in both axes, and if it's not, I'm just going to accept that. Now, curving this thing is going to be a little bit more of a bother than I would potentially like, but we'll figure it out. Spin. Let's see, that's 1 on the y-axis and then also 1 on the x-axis. Is that what we're doing? Maybe we're doing -1 on the x-axis and then 0 on the z-axis, I'm assuming. And then, oh my god. I'm happy that the spin tool exists, don't get me wrong. But it's also a huge pain in the fucking ass to actually work with sometimes. But this is starting to get somewhere. Maybe we need a little bit more than 90 degrees though. Let's like a 120. What does my reference image say? My reference image, it's about a 90-ish degree, really. Let's go for 100, just a little bit more than 90. And then... nah, god damn it, Control... Oh. That's why I don't like the kind of tools in Blender, because they fuck me over so bad. But we'll figure it out. We'll surely figure it out. We were at like minus 100, right? So where the hell... I don't even understand what's going on, if I'm being honest with you. Why is it so significantly different than it was a moment ago? Is this the thing that needs to be -1 now then, for some reason? For some reason, the axes are not the same. Sure. Because that makes sense, doesn't it? Why can I not move it left and right? I can't actually move it in the direction that I need to move it in. Due to some bullshit orientation reasons, I'm guessing. My goodness. Is there really no way that they could have made this even more infuriating to work with? I feel like they could have made this more infuriating to work with. It's a 3D cursor thing, right? So if I set it there... Can I, and this is the question, right? Can I set the 3D cursor there and then have this thing just rotate in a different axis? I suppose what I can do is just set this to 1 and 1 and this back to 0 maybe, and then this one can go a little lower, and nope, that's... Any amount of sense that you might feel in any given moment here quickly disappears. Set this to -100, -115. And we're just going to call it there. That's going to be it. I'm just going to accept that, because that is pretty decent, and I fucking hate working with this pin tool. So, that'll be that. Now, proportional editing, we only want to influence the connectedness, and then we just need a new mouse because of this scrolling thing. It's actually infuriating. I've been playing Palworld just like the rest of everybody on Earth, realistically, at this point. And scrolling through my weapons is not a lot of fun in that game for me because of the cursor situation. In a game like Minecraft, it's not that big a deal because you have just like your 1 through 9 keys to scroll through your inventory as well. And it's even faster to do it that way anyway. So you don't really need... let's make this arc a little more steep. You don't really need it anyway because of that, because it's faster to just use the number keys anyway. But in Palworld, that's not the case, and you actually do very much need your scroll wheel. So I've been hating myself in that game quite a lot. Let's do a subdiv. I'm not sure I like the subdivision, I'm gonna be honest with you. We could maybe... It makes it feel a little wonky. Probably because it is. But for some reason this feels like it is not very straight at the moment. And again, probably because it is. And hey, there's an issue here, actually. Hold on. It's an issue that doesn't really show itself in this version of things, but when I do this, you suddenly see, hey, there's some... for fuck's sake. Can we please just show off? Oh my god. There's an opening here. That's not great. So what I'll do instead is I will first and foremost just shade smooth to see how much that fixes. And then we'll, I suppose, apply the mirror modifiers here. At this point we can re-enable the clipping and merging, and then maybe now if we add a subdiv actually, maybe that does fix that. And this does look, I think this does look a little bit better. So let's stick with this and just apply all these modifiers. Actually, no, let's not apply anything for the time being. I don't think we really want to be applying stuff too much. If we potentially could come back to this in the future. So what we'll do is assign the proper material here. Takes a moment to load in the texture corresponding to it. Scale it to 0. Proportional editing can be off. And then we just give this a very light blue. Even that is a little too saturated and light. Maybe a bit more like this. Maybe it just needs to be a little lighter. Honestly, maybe what we want to do actually is give it a slightly rusted look. With one of these very light oranges. Maybe that works. That gives... Oh, grass is actually a pretty good one. Hadn't thought about that yet. It just looks like grass. I was going to say it looked like that grass. But then I realized I don't even have grass in here for low poly stuff. That said though, for low poly grass, what you want to do is you just want to do it with textures, not with actual models. But hey, who gives a shit? If you want actual 3D geometry for your grass, I'll make it. It's fine. So yeah, let's stick with the slightly blue tinted steel that we've been going with for a lot of these things, and then we'll move that somewhere over there. Okay, and then for the Z location, I want you to be at 0, and then whatever we'll name you is going to be grab. For this one, I want to make sure that I do spell it correctly. Grappling hook. Just copy it over. And that is another one of the list. Am I going to say? Okay, there it is. Anyway, how is everybody doing this fine day while I just ramble on about just a million different things? And I'm just sitting here complaining for 2 hours. And if you want to complain about things too, do complain about them. And I'll complain back to you. And that's kind of just how this works. Let's do the mace next. Because that's one that I've been putting off because it feels a little bit more complex in shape. But I think it's actually not that bad. Really. because it's just a rod with some semi-sharp protrusions coming out of it. Yeah, it's really not that bad. Like, I'm going to use this as a reference. This is not going to be that bad at all. This is going to be pretty easy to do. So let's get started with it. For this one, I'm just going to get started with a normal cylinder here. Rotate that in the X, in the Y, and then scale it in the Z. Let's not use the spin tool anymore because I fucking hate the spin tool with a burning passion. Make this a little longer, make it smaller, make it longer. Like, compared to the length of the sword, I don't know how long the mace should be. I feel like it's a little bit shorter, a fair bit shorter than a sword. Probably the size of the big axe, roughly. That said, though, the axe probably should be bigger than a hammer as well. And I think about it. So let's actually just make the axe a little bit bigger. And then maybe make the... let's see... Make this a little thinner. That feels a little bit more reasonable. That said, it does feel like the handle is going to snap off under the weight of the head. But we're doing a thing with the mace. We're not looking at the axe at the moment. So shut up. Let's see. How long do we want to make this? I think this is a roughly decent shape, and then maybe a little bit thicker of a rod. Let's make it shorter and then bigger again. Yeah, I think we can deal with that. I think that's a pretty decent... not autographic, please. Making a high poly of a specific anti-air cannon, but rather awful despite the weapon being very popular. That sounds like a pain. Shift S as your friend for the spin tool. I never actually... Is that just using the spin tool? Oh, that's for the 3D cursor. Yeah, no, that does work better. I just feel like the spin tool itself is clumsy to work with. Despite it, the 3D cursor thing, like, even if you place that a little bit more strategically than I did, I just feel like it's a pain to work with. Now, let's add a cube. Why is snapping on all of a sudden? The main thing that I don't like, and there's like two thoughts to have here, and both are valid, to be honest. But the main thing that I don't particularly love about the spin tool and many other tools in Blender is the fact that they're all like registered as one action in... Let me pull up my reference real quick. In like the Control-Z thing. So if you change something about this little menu down here and then you try to Control-Z that, it just removes everything that you did with the entire use of the tool. And that is just the fucking worst. There might be some setting somewhere that I'm just not aware of that changes that though. I do want to point out that that is, if not possible, probably even likely the case. I am not necessarily well, I'm pretty familiar with Blender, but I'm not like an expert in it in any way, shape or form. I just get by to make what I need to make, and then I move on back to things that I'm actually pretty good at instead. Let's see what a subdiv does here. That actually kind of works out not too badly. Let's try. I always forget. I'm used to adding in extra support loops, but you don't need to do that, right? You can just increase the crease for it. Yeah, that's a lot better. I need to get better at doing that. Just to keep my geometry a little bit less fucked. Let's pull this up a little bit, and then we add another one in here, and we pull that one back down. You see, and then I want to crease this, and that makes this just so much better to actually control. All that said though, can we just crease this up a little bit more and then scale this in the Y to make it sharper? Maybe that's a little too creasy for specifically this edge. I also think that just having another level of subdivision here wouldn't hurt. Although at some point we really leave behind the notion of low polyness if we do that too much, so gotta be careful with that. But I do think that this is still pretty low poly. Wholeheartedly recommend hard ops. Yeah, I really need to get that. I really do need to get that, but it's like not very cheap, right? I always forget. It's like $40. It's actually not that bad. Because it is, from what I've seen, I've seen a lot of videos like on my TikTok feed and stuff of people using it, and it does seem really, really nice for like a non-destructive workflow. And that is something that I generally do like to have as an option, right? Especially when you're just modeling like I am right now, kind of just like improvising. Having things be non-destructive is really, really nice. Yeah, I probably should buy it at some point in the near future. You're right. Watching someone else doing Blender is a good way of suppressing the fact that you have to do it yourself. I know that feeling. I know that feeling all too well. All that said though, let's mirror this around the rod. And now the question becomes which axis? The y-axis. This doesn't look like a very good maze. I'm gonna be real with you. This is not great. I think I just grabbed it on stale. Package with box cutter, but Blender is my #1 tool. Yeah, I only really use Blender not that much. And I've been using it less and less lately because I used to do everything in Blender, but now I do most of my animation in Unreal Engine. I do most of my sculpting, at least I've been moving to most of my sculpting to ZBrush, my texturing to Substance. All of that used to be all in Blender for me, but I've been kind of splitting up my workflow over different software because Blender is very good at being all in one, but all those other things, well, Unreal is not necessarily better for animation than Blender, I should point out. It's just for my workflow. It's nice to have all the animations in Engine so that when I want to change something, I don't need to re-export, re-import, yada yada yada. I still don't like the shape of this, so let's take these two edges and crease them down ever so slightly so they're a little bit smoother in shape. And then we can probably also do a little of that. Yeah, that feels somewhat more natural. Yeah, Unreal is... it's... what should I say about it? In some ways I like it more for animation than Blender. And in a lot of ways I also don't like it more. Setting up a very simple, just humanoid rig in Blender is infinitely easier and faster than it is in Unreal. Which is nice. For the most part, I feel like the controls in Unreal just feel a little bit more clunky. But also, the workflow advantage for me is quite relevant. And there's then also the... let's go into wireframe mode here while I keep talking. There's also the way that Unreal, and I haven't really used this too much, so do take this with like a pinch of salt. But there's also the way Unreal's character control rigs have a sense of like, aside from just being in local space or in global space or in like normal space or in view space or gimbal space, you can make custom spaces from like bones. So you can say in forearm bone 3 space, and then everything you animate is orientated in a space relative to that bone. I haven't really got into it yet and used it, but that does seem very, very powerful and very, very useful. And surely Blender has something similar, and I just haven't figured that out yet. That is 100% possible, and dare I say even likely. Let's auto shade smooth for both of these. Yeah, no, I'm just gonna kinda... I've got an ID. I have got an ID. Scale this to 0. And what we'll do is take this edge loop and extrude it. No. Extrude it along the face. Normals a little bit more. So it feels a little bit more meaty where it connects, right? Specifically in this direction, I think that will help a lot. Maybe that's overdoing it a little bit. That is a thing in Unreal. Again, I have not used it yet, so I could also be misinterpreting how it works, but that is seemingly how it works. And if I am correct in that, that does seem very, very powerful. But also in a way that I'm like, yeah, but I'll get around to it at some point in the future, probably. I wish there was a modifier built into Blender. I could do this with GeoNode, right? But I wish there was a modifier built into Blender that wouldn't just mirror this, but would like do a radial array. I have made a modifier for that at some point, but I don't remember where I put it. Do I still have it in my asset browser? GeoNodes, radial array. I do! Okay, hold on. Let's do that instead of this mirroring bullshit then. GeoNodes. Can we just put this in here then? How does this work again? Can I... I always get mixed up with how this asset library works. Do I just pull it in here? Radial array. Yes, okay. So we just have that there. And then we can hook all these up into the input group. I love geometry nodes, man. I really do. The pivot object will be this, and then the count will be 3, and the distance will be face pivot. That's not exactly what I had in mind. Yeah, that's not quite what I had in mind. Yeah, never mind. I'll just do the mirror modifier thing. It's fine. We'll just make it 2 objects. You can do radial arrays. Yeah, but you need to do like with a curve or something, right? Like there's no built-in functionality for it. Like you can make it fit to a curve and then do all sorts of stuff. But there's no like just modifier that says, hey, array but radial. As far as I know. And to be honest, like it is more bothersome to set all that up. Even doing what I just did is much more bothersome than just doing this. Especially since this doesn't have to be like pixel perfect. Like this is honestly fine. We can fine tune this a little bit. Maybe make... if we're gonna do that, we should make all of them smaller. And then just round off the rod a little bit more. That's the only way to go. I can't imagine some HP baked normal details without ZBrush. Never touched textures in Blender. Texturing in Blender is a royal pain in the ass because a lot of functionality to make materials and textures just doesn't exist. Like Blender's shading tab, for some fucking reason, like if we have a material here and we want to add some stuff to it, there's a lot that we can do with like mixing and multiplying and doing math on just different types of noise textures. And in the end, that is mostly what making materials is like if you're not hand painting things in. And even if you are, you're using those same noise textures, done stuff to them to make brushes with, for the most part. You can't blur in Blender. Blender doesn't have blur functionality in its material graph. Even in Cycles, which is like we don't care about efficiency. We just want like very, very good looking stuff, even if it takes a million years to render because it's inefficient as all hell. Even in cycles, you can't use blur nodes. It just doesn't exist. And it bothers the ever-living hell out of me. Substance Designer, no problem. It's got like 3 different types of blur in it. And just like that, there's a lot of things that in Blender you have to construct from scratch, and even then they're a little iffy because it doesn't really just work like that. Which Substance Designer's just like got functionality and nodes full, which is just great. Anyway. Transformers not applied. Yeah, that might have been the issue actually. You're right. Oh yeah, I had to orientate the mirror in the Y. Well, that definitely should have been Z. That's a very good catch. That's, yeah, that probably is the reason that it didn't work. Shift D to rotate. Yeah, that also would have worked better. But again, it doesn't really matter too much for now because I'm just going through these relatively quickly. Let's add more than 1 segment for these. It's pretty good. It's a little bigger. It shouldn't look like a glob, but it also shouldn't be exactly straight because I don't like things that are very straight. Well, that can be taken out of context real easily. And then this one, maybe make that a little bit more like pointy at the bottom, like this. Maybe not quite that pointy though. You know, proportional editing doesn't really do anything if you have everything selected that's close to it anyway. Not rotate, scale. That's a little bit better. One point during the project, I was making a lunge and noticed my old SketchUp point. Like the scratches pulled out of my Nikon and Photoshop and had a grunge map. Yeah, that's even better, right? If you just like in real life see something like, I like the texture of that. Now I have that texture to work with. Because as much as mixing and matching different procedural stuff gets you very good results, nothing's better than something that actually has gone through like 10 years of wear and tear and just taking that as a picture. Nothing can compare to that, usually. Yeah, I'm going to be real with you. This is not the best maze in the universe. Let's take a look at if I have any ideas as to how to improve this further. I do think that maybe just like putting this edge loop here and taking this loop over here and just extruding this ever so slightly out. Now we can bevel it. Oh, no, not like that. Just these two, please. Beveling that. Something went wrong there, I think. Yeah, okay. It's also beveling the inside edges. Definitely don't want that. It's probably actually an option for in the bevel settings to prevent that, but that instantly does make it a lot better. I'm not gonna lie. It's still not particularly fancy, don't get me wrong. But that little change does take it from, hey, this kind of fucking sucks, to, it only sucks a little bit. Over proportionalizing, that I do know. I just often, when I enable it, I then forget to disable it for like an hour, and I get annoyed at myself for why the hell is this not moving the way I should be moving. Turns out, usually it's just because I'm an idiot. You know what? I'm just going to deal with this now, and this is pretty much good enough for what I want it to be. So let's combine these into one object, and then we'll go back into my outliner, pretty please. We'll call this a mace, and we'll give it a fancy color. I think actually for this one I am going to do a little bit of unwrapping, unlike most of the objects that I have here. And with unwrapping I mean just like putting down literally 2 seams and calling it a day. Because I want the rod itself to be a more metallic, like steel color. Mark seam. And then the macy bit I want to be... I don't know what color I want that to be, actually. It's a very good question. You didn't give the mace the Assam prefix. I can explain. I'm going to come up with an explanation real quick now, because I don't really have an explanation. Why in the world? Because I'm not in face select mode. That's why. The reason that I don't do that is because I'm making an asset pack for more than just Unreal, and oh, that's way too blue. And honestly, when I get to importing this in Unreal, I'll probably try to find like a way to make a script to name everything as SM for static mesh. Because when this is going on the marketplace, for cheap, it's going to be cheap. People probably will want this to be marked as SM for static mesh. And rightfully so. But it's also just going on my Gumroad with all the blend files, and I'm probably going to put it on like Unity as well, because why the fuck wouldn't I at this point, right? Maybe want like a bronze color for the mace thing. Does that look weird? Opinions, please. Does that look weird? This coloration for... Blender's badge. Oh, Blender does have a badge rename. In that case, I'll probably just make a copy of the blend file and just rename everything in Blender with SM as a prefix. Because I don't know if Unreal has anything like that. It probably... I can't imagine that it doesn't. It has to. And frankly, if it doesn't, it can't be that difficult to make something like that, because all you really need to do is just get an array of all of the assets, get the names, store the name in a variable, and just set a new name as SM underscore plus the name of that variable, and then iterate through that loop. Like, that should be all there is to it. Which is probably why it already exists inside Unreal, because it really is not that difficult to make. There's probably going to be some more trouble than that when actually making something like that. It's a little too pink. Maybe I need more saturation? I do think that more saturation actually works for this one. For this very model is making me think, yeah, I probably just need metallicness in my materials. Maybe a shade darker. 2 shades darker. That's a little too brown. Hold on, darker and more saturated. That makes it look a little too much like wood. It still needs to be metallic. That kind of looks like it could be some kind of brass or bronze. Yeah, let's go with that. I've been stuck on this goddamn model for way too long as is, so put this down at Z height 0 and then we'll just like put it. It's a little small, isn't it? Let's make it a little bit bigger. That's a little more like it. That said though, this spear is the the size of a sword as well, so maybe make this a little bit bigger as well. That's a little more reasonable. The scaling in between these things doesn't always make a lot of sense, I'll be real with you. But in the end, whoever is going to use this is probably going to need to scale these to match whatever assets they're using anyway, so it'll be fine. It looks like a ballista bolt. It kind of does, doesn't it? Maybe it needs a little bit more of a handle. To be honest, the way I make the spear is just taking the arrow and modifying it a little bit. But I think maybe giving it a little bit more of a handle would probably be a good idea. So let's just do that real quick. We can do this. It'll be pretty easy. Just extrude these along the edges. Then it's pretty rough work that I'm doing here. Like, I'm not measuring this in any way, shape or form, as you can clearly see. Did I say extrude along edges? I meant along normals. Oh no, that's probably not good. Hold on. First apply scale. Let's first apply scale. Might be a bit much. Just a rough approximation is probably... I don't think that's half bad. That's pretty similar in width, I think. Similar enough for me, at any rate. Okay, that's that though. I do need these to be the same amount of extrusion, otherwise that's going to look real weird. Which is just a little bit. So we'll put in some seams there, and then this is probably gonna fuck with can I just unwrap like this? Is that going to... I think that actually did what I needed to do, weirdly enough. Given a little bit of a handle there, I do think does make it feel a little bit more like a spear. That said, maybe you should have copied it and said, hey, we've got a spear and a ballista bolt in this package. But, I don't know. Kind of feels weird to add in a ballista bolt without having a ballista. And I don't really think that I'm going to be modeling that. So, man, a lot of these things are marked as complete already, aren't they? I've got the scythe, the magic staff, and the crossbow. I think we're going to go crossbow. So let's Google crossbow. It's probably one of the more complex shapes that we're doing for this pack. Still not overly complex, of course. It's not that complicated of a shape, but compared to stick, sharp stick, a crossbow is a little bit more complex. That's at the mace did give me a lot of problems as well, though. So put it in the bow, instant comedy. I've got a huge fuck you arrow. Just fuck you right in the face. Yeah, no. I don't think... If we make the bow a little bit larger, that might work. I do, by the way, like how using this kind of method for texturing effectively, while it doesn't have a lot of detail, the detail that it does have in like color variation has infinite resolution because it's based on geometry, not textures. So that's really fucking nice. Very happy that I came across this technique and I'm now implementing it myself. We were doing a crossbow, I believe. So let's get started with the body of the crossbow. I swear to God, people only fucking text me when I'm live streaming or recording. Nobody ever wants anything from me when I'm just chilling and bored. When I'm just like, hey, anybody want to like waste my time? And everyone's like, no, I'm busy, I've got a job. And I'm like, fuck you. Now that I'm actually doing some work, people are bothering me. Fuck off. Anyway, hopefully they're not watching this. If you're texting me and you're watching this, don't take offense. I swear to God, if people start texting me and like DMing me on Discord now, I'm going to actually lose my mind. Nobody's chatting on Twitch anyway. I can just overlap the Twitch chat with my reference here. That's fine. Which, for reference purposes, I'm using this as a reference right now. Maybe this is a little bit more like what I'm envisioning, though. I think I'm going to be using this instead. So let's start with making the main body, which is like just a stick. And then we duplicate that and we rotate it. And we've got a crossbow. There you go. Okay, maybe it's not quite that simple, but it's not that much more difficult necessarily. You just need to give this thing a little bit of shape. And the best way to give it a little bit of shape is to say, hey, subdiv. And from there we just add the detail where we need it to be. So we want this to... I'm going to try to follow the rough shape of this somewhat close-ish, because I don't know how important the shape of these things is for like their dynamics and stuff, because, well, I'm no fucking crossbow doctor. I'm assuming it's not that important, all things considered, but it fucking might be. I don't know. No, wrong axis, always do that. And I think like this could be even a little bit smaller, and that's actually not too bad of like a shape, I don't think. Yeah, just ergonomics. It does need some structural integrity to like hold the the stored up energy of the to fight a bolt with, of course. So you don't want to make it too thin, especially around these parts. But I do think that we're pretty good here. And I don't know how ergonomic it is, but then again, have you looked at this sword handle? Like, I wouldn't want to hold this sword. Probably would be a pain in the... Well, probably also would be a pain in the ass if you... But probably would be pretty painful to hold this sword for longer than 2 seconds. There's some level of suspension of disbelief that I'm just going to go with, because low poly is a very good excuse for that. That's really what it comes down to. For these, let's try using creasing instead. And then move them back a little. Let's see if I crease this up a little more. Now the question becomes, how detailed do I want to make the connection between these bits? I think I want them just to... Okay, so what I had before here was an entirely wooden crossbow, which had like these ropes and stuff, but then I saw this one, and this one is just easier in shape to reproduce. So, in short, we're going to be using this one going forward as a reference, because it's easier, and I like things being easy. But also, this definitely needs to be a lot flatter, so that should be as easy as just taking these two and moving them. Okay, now it looks a little bit like the pickaxe that I have. But the moment I put in another cylinder here for the string, we should be fine. I did just realize though that maybe possibly I want to take this edge. I said this edge. And move it down a little to make a bit of a handle. So move this one. There we go. Move this one up a little bit as well. Maybe move this over ever so slightly. Maybe just crease it a bit more. No, that's not what I want to do. Yeah, this works for me, so let's just make this a little smaller. And then we add a string to this thing. And a string will literally, in this case, just be a cylinder, which I'll be good with this one, and I'll change its rotation in edit mode so I don't get fucked up like I did last time. It's gonna be real fucking thin. Like really fucking thin. Like really fucking thin. And I'm probably going to auto mirror this because otherwise it's going to be a pain in the ass to deal with. Yeah, this is probably going to clip through a couple of things. Just bear with me and we'll figure that out in a moment. Yeah, this is definitely going to be clipping through a couple of things. Edit, auto mirror X, nope. Auto mirror Y. Auto mirror Y negative. There we go. We got there eventually. Now just start adding in some loop cuts and just move things about a little bit. With proportional editing. Not too much, because then you get this. That's not a particularly tight piece of string, is it? No, that's not particularly tight at all. Yeah, I think. Let me think. It's a little too pinched up here, so there does need to be a little bit more slack onto it, but not a significant amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the... You've already seen me turn it off. Proportional editing, and I'm just going to move these things around manually, which is always a good idea to do. It's never gone wrong in the past for anybody ever, but it actually kind of works out in this case. So, fuck you, I guess. Now, realistically speaking, crossbows fire crossbow bolts and not normal bow arrows. So I probably should make a specific bolt as well, shouldn't I? And with make a specific bolt, I mean I should just copy over the arrow and just give it different colors and change it around ever so slightly. Because what does a crossbow bolt even look like? Yeah, I think you can just get away with firing normal looking arrows, to be honest with you. I don't know that I really... Of course, like these modern... I probably should show you. Like these more modern looking ones are significantly different. Where were they? Like things like these, right? These are significantly different from what you probably fire modern arrows as. But then you look at these presumably more medieval ones, and you're like, and it kind of feels like just a stubby arrow. Specifically like this one, which has a more pointing like arrow head. That just slightly more stubby. So I suppose what I could do is first give this thing colors. Before we do anything else, let's do that. And before we apply anything, or before we merge anything, there's some things that we probably want to apply. I said there's some things that we probably want to apply. So let's give this thing a couple of colors here. It's definitely not the tab that I want to be in. All going to be this material. Gonna take a moment to load in. It's fine. And this one will be like a brownish color. It's fine. For some reason, it's not the color I wanted, but we'll figure that out in a moment. Once everything has been collapsed down into a couple of points. This is the steel, so that'll probably be a color a little bit like that. And then we'll take a grayish color for the string. And then coming back, this definitely needs to be much darker, saturated like that. Yeah, I think the shape of the actual body of the crossbow could use some work. So let's go back to that in Google crossbow. now the issue becomes I did apply my modifiers already, so this becomes infinitely more bothersome to deal with, and this is why we want things to be non-destructive. Remember the thing that I talked about, I don't know when, but earlier today? Immediately a good example as to why I like non-destructive workflows. I could have just not merged the objects yet. That would have definitely worked, but we'll live. Okay, so first and foremost, there's some double vertices here. So let's merge things first, because that's kind of fucking up the way that I wanted to do this. Because what I had in mind is if I just select all of these and I say, hey, you scale to very low amount, and then I select all of these, which is a little bit more tricky, but we'll get there. You know what, actually, could just do this. And we also scale these down a little bit more, so that just to make things a little bit more blocky is what I'm doing here. And then we pull this one back down and just slightly bevel it. I do like this look for it a little bit better. All that said though, we have a edge loop here that I want to shrink down so this all goes properly like into here instead of half clipping out of it. And for the crossbow, I do think that that will suffice for now. So let's add the crossbow. And while we're at it, might as well just copy over the arrow. And move it around a little. And what we'll do for the arrow is... well, first things first, what we'll do is we'll just make it stubbier. So we'll take this, make that stubbier, and just move it closer. The entire thing itself... oh, the pivot point is fucked. Wait. Okay, I thought they were both in the same object still. And then I'll do the same with this as I did with the spear, I think. And that is slide this, and then I think the Alt, yes. It's going to take a moment, but we'll get there. Add slide, and with Alt we can... no, I want... it's important that we take the proper edge to slide down first before we do this. Good. I thought this is how I did things, but maybe it's not. Oh, and then I did this. Yep. So then I slid these points down to there and down to there. We'll merge by distance again. And now we can... probably best to auto mirror this, to be honest with you. Yeah, let's just... I can't be bothered. This is fine. Right? If we take this and we move it along a little bit. Yeah, no, this does need to be changed around ever so slightly. At least so that they're at the same depth. The angle looks pretty good to me though, so yeah, I think we can deal with this. Maybe we want to make this a little bit flatter too. And that will be our crossbow bolts. Check its size. Oh yeah, and then it's not an edit mode that we do that. That we do in there. Set origin to geometry. There we go. And that will be our crossbow bolts. Didn't even plan on making that, but we did, and that's technically speaking just gonna be that guy. Technically speaking, that is another model. I did drop a few frames there. I hope that wasn't too troublesome. It doesn't have a trigger, the crossbow. Probably should. I just realized. Probably should. Let's make one real quick. It's not too difficult to make, so we'll just add another cube because everything is a freaking cube. Move that to there. And then the trigger will just be something that is slightly angled. Rotate, extrude. Even more. Pull it up a little bit. Extrude. Should I be using the spin tool for this? Yes, but I just went on a whole fucking rant about how I don't like the spin tool because it's iffy, and now I'm doing it in an even more iffy way because that's just what I do. Alright. We don't add a material to it yet. We'll get assigned a material in a moment anyway. Just add subdiv. Increase this up a little bit. Select the entire thing. Make it smaller. But longer. And there we go. It's got a very weird penis looking trigger now. And now everything has a subdiv. Hold on. No, I don't. I want to apply the subdiv first. Maybe I want to have, yeah, 2 levels of subdiv is probably better. Oh, Reddit. I don't even think I did shade this smooth, did I? I might have. Never mind. Select all these. 0, and this will also be like a steel ironish color. Maybe slightly different color than the steel on there. Move those there. Okay, so we've made a couple of things already today. We made the grappling hook. We made the still not very good looking mace. We improved the spear. Made a crossbow and a bolt. We're doing things. Making progress. for the most part, things are starting to complete out this list, meaning that I have to come up with some more fucking weapons. It's gonna be good. Don't look forward to the Scythe or the Magic Staff, but those are the only two I have left at this point. So... what about the handful of people that are watching right now get to choose between me doing the Scythe or me doing a Magic Staff? And when I say Magic Staff, I don't mean a wand like Harry Potter, I mean the staff like Gandalf. Because a wand is very easy to make, it's literally just a stick. I'm gonna go pee real quick, and then I'll be back, and hopefully people will have given their opinions on what I should be doing. Again, the options are a Scythe, like a Grim Reaper kind of thing, or a Magic Staff, like a Gandalf type of thing. I'll be back in literally like a minute. Isn't it amazing how live streaming really punishes being a human fucking being with bodily functions? Because I can see in my retention graph the moment I went to the bathroom, like half my views dropped, and they'll probably be building back up at some point. But it's just always funny to see that kind of stuff. Also, nobody gave any preference as to what I should be doing next, so I suppose we'll be doing the Scythe. Which can be fairly simple as well. Because it's literally just a stick with like a bent sword on the end. That said, maybe we can also just like do a sickle as well. Might not be a bad idea. Let's do a Scythe first, because it's relatively simple as well. The amount of cylinders that I've added in this so far is kind of insane. Because almost everything here starts with the cylinder, or like has a string which is a cylinder or whatever. There's a lot of cylinders going around here, is all I'm saying. Is that the... No, that's not the direction that I need. This is the direction that I need. And the Scythe definitely should be longer than the sword, is what I'm thinking. Also, how far back is the stream? Hello? Hold on, let me refresh my dashboard just to see, because it seemed like the stream might be like very far behind. Or maybe that's just my preview. Okay, that's just my preview that lagged out. That's fair. Okay, so again, the scythe itself should probably be longer than the sword. So something similar to the spear, I would say, actually, is probably a good size comparison for this thing. I do think that that's a pretty good start to go off of. And then we literally, I'm going to probably add a little bit more detail to this because it will be a little too low detail otherwise, maybe. But all we literally have to do is scale this the fuck down, flatten it quite a bit, move it to around here, take this face, say, hey, you are moving over here, and becoming small. Then people keep texting me. Then we make this little angle here, just bevel it, and that kind of is everything there is to it. Probably want a little bit more rotation on this little end piece here, which we can do with proportional editing. And then we also, what I'm going to do just to make this a little bit better than it is right now, is take all of these and actually probably also this one, make them a little bit, not proportional editing, make them a little bit thicker, thick boy. Just so that if we take all of these and we make them thinner, we could probably even like add a loop cut here. To really accentuate the sharper edge on this. To the point where it might even be okay if no, let's not do let's not do it too much actually. It is pretty good. Now don't forget to merge by distance. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to merge by distance and set that distance a little bit higher, so all of these vertices actually get smooshed together. So this is now just one vertex, right? Yes, it is. Good. And we've got the basic shape for a scythe. Now let's make this a little bit more. Hello, there we go. Just a little bit more fancy with like a little protrusion that comes out of here. To make it feel like there's a little bit of like physical support for the blade. But for the most part, I do think that's pretty much it. I'll be honest with you. I don't think there's all that much more to it. It's just a rounded blade on a stick. Like that's really. Let's make a handle as well. Let's make a handle as well. I don't dislike that idea. Yeah, now let's do the same way we did it for the spear. That kind of worked. Not too thick, but still pretty good. Add in the edges in the roughest I don't give a shit way that you've ever seen. Look at it from above to make sure, yeah, no, maybe actually. Even when eyeballing it, it should be pretty close, even if you don't give a shit like I do. Just giving it that handle does do a lot, I will be honest. Make the handle a little bit bigger, because it's a very big object. Now let's color this. Also, let's go back to the YouTube chat, just to be sure. Also, join these two objects together. And bevel the caps, because as much as there's a low poly, I still don't want these harsh edges. It's just ugly. That's much better. They are already joined together, right? Yeah, okay. Scythe. And then we were going to do a thing with material. So for the material, what we do is pretty much the same thing that we have been doing. So I'm not going to narrate this. I'm just going to show up for a second. Just kidding. Do you really think that I can shut up? If that is a thing that you think I am capable of, welcome. You must be new here. These two are seams, and I don't need any other seams, I don't think. No, that's not true. I do. I need some seams up here. Seam and a seam. Not there. There. Mark seam. Unwrap. First this and oh, you don't have to hold shift. That's true. That's true. Again, it's gonna be like a steel color. Then we have these bits of the ball itself, which are going to be a more wood-like color, but a lighter wood, like a slightly bamboo kind of color maybe. And then, you know what? I'm gonna be wild. The handle, I'm not going to make a steel color. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a dark gray. Okay, that's maybe a little too purple. Something, I think this is a Blender issue. It seems to be bleeding these colors together due to the low resolution of the texture. I'll have to see how it does in Engine for these, but Blender does not seem to be a huge fan of these low resolution textures. Which is fair enough, because this thing is like 64 by 64 pixels, but that's kind of by design. Oh yeah, and origin to geometry, please. Origin to geometry. Matter of fact, actually, no, origin should be on the handle. just because that's that makes a little bit more sense. And with that, we have the scythe done as well. So how many objects do we have at this point? Let's see. We have 19. So that'll be 20 after we've done the staff as well. And the magic staff will be... Oh, we could make it a little bit more ornate as well. And we could do like multiple different staffs. I was thinking just like a Gandalf type staff. And I still could do just like a Gandalf type staff, which is just a stick with like some twisty stuff at the at the top. Like this, right, is what I was thinking. But then when I just typed in magic staff, I got a lot of these like elemental staffs as well, which might be pretty neat to do. Like specifically things like this ice staff would be relatively doable to create, I think. Maybe I want to think about these magic staffs a little bit more and actually categorize them a bit better than I have right now as separate objects before I actually jump into doing those. Yeah, so let's think about this for a moment, because at the moment it's just magic staff. But let's add a ice staff and a fire staff and a let's say a nature staff. And I think for now we can kind of stick with that. So let's remove this last task that I just added. That adds 3 more items for me to do. But for now I think we have the list. I don't really feel like doing this stuff, so I'm being honest, that's just kind of what it comes down to. So let's see, is there anybody that has any ideas left? We've been going for over an hour and a half. Time flies when you're modeling, I swear. Whenever I'm programming, and I do like programming, don't get me wrong, but whenever I'm programming, I look over at the time, like, surely we've been going for like almost 3 hours, and it's been 40 minutes. When I'm modeling, somehow time goes much faster, even though I don't necessarily like it more. Not in the slightest. So yeah, the thing for these staffs is mostly that I don't really have like a good vision for them yet, so I don't really want to get started on them because of that. But I do want to focus on the fantasy weapons because we've got 20 objects at this point. I kind of want to focus my efforts into making more things that fit within the theme for these ones, so that I can finish up this pack, preferably by the end of the month. Maybe sometime in February, realistically speaking. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Organization 13 and see what weapons they have. Because they have weird-ass fucking anime fantasy weapons, which is where the idea for the scythe came from. It came from Alucia. Oh, a shield. Duh, a shield. Idiot. Of course. We can make a kite shield and a square shield, because also like the whole style here is kind of inspired by RuneScape. So let's make a kite shield and a square shield. We have a hammer, but we don't yet have a war hammer, I think. So war hammer. I mean, we've got this. We've got this maul, which is pretty similar to a Warhammer. Actually, I think those are too close to really call. We've got a spear already. I don't really know if I want chakrams. Chakrams could. Like a set of fantasy chakrams would be kind of neat. Yeah, let's add like 2 or 3 different sets of chakrams. Chakrams. Like just the most basic version of it is literally just a sharp disc with a hole in the middle. Like that would take like a minute to make. So we can make a couple of different designs for those, I think. Like if we take my reference page here in Google Images, like this is the real world version of what those weapons are like. They are very simple. Like they're either just literally a circle with a sharp edge, or you can hold them. I think these are 2 halves, like these ones. Like probably this is a little bit more interesting to make as well. But then you have like all these fantasy versions of them, and of course this is a fantasy pack, which are a lot more elaborate. You've got this one, which had like a little like ninja star like edges to it, and all these ones. I think we can do some interesting stuff with these. So we can make a set of chakrams as well. But that's about it for Organization 13, because we've got a guy with like a hammer sword. We've got Laroxine with. I'll just show you again, actually. Higher res image, please. So yeah, we've got these like. What even are these? Like brass knuckles. We've got a guy with a book. Already have a book. A claymore, which is just what actually is the original weapon for that? Like that is an actual weapon, right? It's just a big ass sword, okay? We've got chakrams. We've got a sniper rifle for obvious reasons. Not very fantasy. We've got playing cards. I don't think I have to explain as to why I'm not going to be doing that. And it's sitar. Again. I don't think I have to explain that one. And like keyblades. And of course I'm not going to make keyblades because I don't want to get sued. So that really ends that bit of inspiration, doesn't it? It did gain me a couple new things like the shield and the chakrams, and man. And the chakrams will be probably more than one set. Then again, I don't want to make half my pack here just different kinds of chakrams either. So probably not going to go overboard with those as well. But like 2 or 3 different kinds are probably not a bad idea. Same with the staffs, right? I've got a couple of different kinds, and then the shields I've got a couple of different kinds. Let's just look at RuneScape weapons, shall we? Because that is also a source of inspiration for this. And those are also... Let's do RuneScape 2 weapons, not RuneScape 3, because RuneScape 3 is like super HD. My god, it's been a while since I've played RuneScape. I don't recognize half these fucking things. I know old school RuneScape has continued getting updated, and it feels like it's now also fairly modern. Like this is what I was kind of looking for, right? The Rune Scimitar. Which, to be fair, just adding a scimitar probably is a good idea as well. Maybe do that. It's the... Oh, my back is fucking killing me. I'm telling you, it's not a good time to be me. Need to get a better chair soon. It's an iconic fucking weapon, isn't it? For like RuneScape. It's the Rune Scimitar. So might as well. I only have one sword, and well, I've technically got a dagger. But I only got like 2 bladed weapons. You could say that the axe and the scythe are bladed weapons as well. And you wouldn't be wrong, necessarily. And not everything has to be weapons as well. I'm fine making things that are just tools, rather than necessarily weapons. But for now, let's add the scimitar. Hello, welcome. I'm not doing too much modeling at the moment. I'm just gathering things to add to my to-do list. And maybe we'll do like 1 or 2 more models this stream. But for the most part, I'm just hanging out and thinking of ideas. So if you have any ideas for what I could add to this collection of low poly fantasy medieval weapons, please do let me know. Because I very much need more ideas, because again, I've got 20 models at the moment. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like let's say 7, 8, 9, 10 more ideas in the works. That makes for 30. I want to get to 50 if at all possible. So I need about 20 more IDs, and I'm kind of running out of IDs. So let's just generally Google fantasy weapons. It's just a lot of fucking big swords, man. It's just a lot of big ass swords. I just watched a tutorial on loading world using load stream level, and everything is working, but my loading screen doesn't disappear. As if, yeah, so for that you probably want to just hop into the Discord real quick or the comments of that video, because I'm not going to be live troubleshooting tutorial related issues, but I'm happy to help if you're either in the comments or in the Discord for that. Probably going to get back to you tomorrow though on that one. So yeah, there's just a lot of like huge ass fucking swords here. Should I add in like armor pieces as well, like make helmets and stuff? I don't think so. I think that should be part of the character pack, because that's also something I'm going to be doing in the future. Like I've got a lot of plans, like a lot of 3D modeling to be done in the first half of this year. Speaking of big ass swords, the ultimate big ass sword, the Buster Sword. I finally started playing this game, by the way, a couple of weeks ago. I've only gone like 5 hours in, but I started playing it, which is a start. I suppose these are also like spear swords. Probably not a bad idea. A fake Buster Sword. A dual sword. Oh, maybe dual sword could... maybe that could do... Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go too Darth Maul on this, right? Yeah, no, that's not. Why are all fantasy weapons just giant swords? Don't get me wrong, I love giant swords as much as the next guy, but I also like a little originality. So let's change this to Final Fantasy weapons, actually, because Final Fantasy usually does a good job of only having like 1 or 2 guys with a giant sword. And then, well, to be fair, like if we're talking about 2 guys with giant swords, we have it right here, don't we? Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and say Final Fantasy is not going to be a great source of inspiration after all, actually. Because most of the things, like, yeah, you've got like the shurikens from Yuffie, but I already have a shuriken. Not a particularly good looking one, but I have a shuriken. I could make like one or two more designs for different shurikens, I suppose. To like quickly add and kind of inflate that number of models that I have. I could do that. Probably should. Gunblade for it. I rest my case. Best fucking thing ever. Okay, so if it's not giant fucking swords, fantasy fans like giant fucking spears as a secondary option. Say about fantasy fans what you will, but a lot of them are very predictable. I wanted to say simple, but that sounds rude. They're predictable. Let's say that. That's just a little nicer. I don't want to be rude. Especially since I would consider myself as part of like the group fantasy fans. Yeah, this is not helping. Let's just look at... If I just look up weapons, it's going to be guns. It's actually remarkably only half of them are guns. Let's take a look at this catch over here. I suppose we could make a knife. We already have a dagger, but there is a distinct difference between a dagger and a knife. That being, a knife only has one sharp edge. So let's add a knife. I do like that idea, like a combat knife. You see, this is the kind of shit where it actually becomes interesting. Like, there's so many interesting particular fantasy weapons, or even historical weapons for that matter, that mostly just kind of get ignored. Like, I don't even know what this is called, this thing over here. Like a spiked ball on a stick. So much more interesting than just big swords. But what is that called, actually? That's a very good question. If I just Google spike ball on stick weapon, it's called a Morning Star. You see, it even has a badass name. A Morning Star. Better than just sword but big. We've got a saber. Laser scalpel. I don't know about that one. A sai? We can do a sai. I don't know if that's the pronunciation of it, but it's different enough from being tiny sword that I think that it is fine. We're not going to do nunchucks because I don't want to do anything that has to be animated. Like, a lot of these things, like the bows and stuff, you can animate, but you can also get away with like not animating them if you really wanted to. A mono sword. That seems like a fucking nightmare of a weapon, not gonna lie. I suppose throwing knives is a good idea. I'm getting ideas here. I'm getting good ideas. Throwing knives. Battle axe. I don't have that yet. Battle axe. We'll get to 50. We'll get to 50. And even within this image, which has, well, not particularly interesting weapons, it's just like big ass fantasy sword. I don't need big ass fantasy sword. Everybody can think about big ass fantasy swords. That's not not original. A Warhammer. I suppose we can do a Warhammer after all. It's just a hammer with a spike on it, realistically speaking. But we can do a Warhammer. Why not? I don't want to do brass knuckles because I don't want to do anything that involves fingers necessarily. Because this is going to have to go with my low poly character pack that I'm eventually going to do, and those guys, believe you me, are not gonna have fingers. I will promise that right now. Those guys, fingerless, just clumps as hands. What the fuck even is this weapon? You're just gonna hit somebody with a metal guitar? Oh, it doesn't seem particularly effective. Probably just misunderstanding the weapon though. What the hell is this? Is it just like a miniature scythe that's actually made for combat? Oh, wait, no, it's even better. I'm not gonna make it because of it, but it's on a chain. That seems like... wow, okay. That's kind of cool, not gonna lie. This one as well. Weapons on chains are just better, right? Just put any weapon on a chain and it just becomes more awesome. Just becomes cooler because it's on a chain. Hey, why is there a sword on, why is there a chain on your sword? Is that useful anyway? No, it just makes it cool. It's kind of what it does. That said though, my inspiration in this page is also starting to slowly run low a little bit. But we've made some progress here. That's for damn sure. Wolverine claws. I don't know if there's an actual name for those things. But again, those do involve fingers, so I'm not going to actually make those. Also, it's just a scythe blade times 3 next to each other on a cylinder. Which is a good reason to make them, because it's easy to make. But for now... have we looked at this image yet? We have. I don't think that these are really... like, there's more types of swords. There's a lot of types of swords, right? And... like real fanatic fantasy fans and like history fans are going to be mad when I say, well, there's just a different kind of sword. But in the end, they're just different kind of swords. Like there needs to be enough a visual distinction between a different, like look at this image, right? I know that all of these are different weapons with different uses. Different pros, different cons, but in the end, they're all swords. That's what they are. I'm not going to make a million swords. I'm not making a sword pack. I'm making a weapons pack, and I want those weapons to be like individually useful. And yes, I know the swords would also be individually useful, but you get what I mean. Okay, so that said, I think that we're kind of running low on possible inspirations on Google here. So let's take another look at how many we have before we probably end it off for today. We have 19 models already made. I thought we had 20, but apparently we have 19. Yeah, that's true because I didn't make the 20th. So we have 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, potentially 28, like 29. Let's say 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. So we're getting there. We're almost at 40. And when we're at 40, we're practically at 50. So we're kind of there, right? We're getting there. And I kind of want to make 51 so I can advertise it as 50 plus. But that might be stretching things a little bit because I'm also counting the arrow and the bolt as models. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm actually going to do that. But for now, I've increased my list of things to make. I've made a couple of models and we've just hung out and had a generally awesome good time. So I'll be back on Friday with probably not modeling again. I'm trying to make only one of the streams every week modeling at the most, or at least for this pack, and then the other stream will specifically be to do with my game. So we might be modeling, we might be doing like some sculpting for like a character or something. But aside from that, it will be for my game and not for like this asset pack, which will be on Friday. So I will see you then.